Okay.
Good morning, everyone. For any of you who may be new to College of Coffee, I'm Karen Valentine, the Director of Guidance, and today's coffee is actually a little different focus, but something very important to everyone. It's talking about cyber safety and other tips for parents. So it's going to be presented by our school therapist, Juliana Gallant. So I'd like to introduce Juliana and get started. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this morning on St. Patrick's Day and a Monday morning. And, you know, I will talk about a little bit about college, too. So it fits under the title of College and Coffee. But really, I often have parents asking questions about what's going on online for their kids. A lot of the programs that the kids have on their phones now and things like that, parents are not necessarily even aware of. And one of my favorite speakers, he actually runs the cyberbullying.us website. I want to say his name correctly, Samir Hinduja. He was doing a webinar last year, and something he said really stuck with me. And that is that, you know, we as parents today are very, very involved in our children's real lives. We're at all their performances and their sporting events, and you name it, we're there. We're making sure they're doing their homework. But in terms of their online lives, we're very hands-off. We say, oh, well, it's their private area, or just, you know, maybe don't feel like we have time to figure it all out. But the truth is that there's just as much going on for them online today as there is in real life. And a lot of times, some of the things that are most harmful for them are actually happening online. So today I chose three main topics: cyberbullying and sexting, and then also college admissions and the internet, because I think that that's important as well. So defining cyberbullying, this again is from that same website, cyberbullying.us. Willful and repeated harm inflicted through the use of computers, cell phones, and other electronic devices. So they're basically using their phones, their computers to hurt other people. Very recently, there was, have you heard of Ask FM? Okay. So do you remember a few years ago hearing about FormSpring? Or maybe your kids weren't old enough. Have you heard of FormSpring? Okay. So you're going to learn something new today. Every year I go into the 9th grade classrooms in their health classes, and I talk to them about cyberbullying and all of these kinds of things. And they inform me of the latest and greatest ways that kids are using their technology to hurt each other. Ask FM, I learned about it actually last spring, and it is a completely anonymous website. So what the point is you're supposed to be able to go on and anonymously ask other students or other peers, other kids your age, questions about themselves, anything. But what happens is, you know, they start asking, because it's completely anonymous, they start asking questions like, you know, why are you so ugly? Why doesn't anybody like you? Some of it gets very sexual. And when I was in the freshman classes this year, there were, when I asked them to raise their hand, if they knew somebody who had an Ask FM account, or if they themselves had an Ask FM account, pretty much 100% of the kids raised their hands. And then I did ask them, do your parents know about Ask FM? And almost all of them said, no, they probably don't know about Ask FM. So it is in the headlines right now because, unfortunately, there have been several suicides linked to Ask FM. And so now Ask FM is trying to put some reins on it and restrictions and ways to make sure they can figure out who's doing what online, because they're getting a lot of, as you can imagine, upset people making reports to them saying, I need to know who said these things, and they truly don't know. So they've been promising to have some more to kind of clean that part of their service up, but for now, I think it still is anonymous. So here's just a couple main statistics about cyberbullying. A lot of times kids who get bullied or cyberbullied, and again, you know, it can be online and offline. You know, what I mean by that is if somebody's being mean to somebody online, you know, it can also come into the school and they're mean to them at school as well. So, so these statistics are actually older statistics that many of you have probably heard, but they still apply. For example, a lot of times kids who get bullied, they don't want to go to school. It can lead to depression. It can lead to, you know, lower self-esteem, all those kinds of things. That's why our nation has started really paying attention to the bullying and cyberbullying that's happening. It's harder for kids who are getting targeted to make friends, even if they're the nicest kids on earth, because who wants to associate with somebody who's getting bullied? They might get bullied as well. And then this is a pretty old statistic. Unfortunately, it's probably different now. 160,000 students in America stay home each day from school to avoid being bullied. But unfortunately, with cyberbullying, they can be reached at home as well. So where home used to maybe be the safe place where they could go and not be bullied, it's not that way anymore. And you know, at our school, we hand them all computers. So at our school, you can't even say, oh, well, my child doesn't have access to the internet, because they have to. Is that the same one? Sorry. So these are just recent articles. When I was getting ready to do a presentation in September, I just Googled, and you know, these were all very, very recent, from August and September, I think. Yeah. Girls' suicide points to the rise in apps used by cyberbullies. Ask FM, new social site, same bullying. And then this little one is police warn parents about popular Snapchat app. Have you heard of Snapchat? No. Okay, let me tell you about that one. See, you're learning so much. Snapchat is an app that the kids can text each other or send pictures to one another and set a time on it when it disappears. So basically they can say anything or send any kind of picture, which is what we'll talk next about, and it will disappear. Okay, so the problem with that is that kids started using this as an excuse to be really mean because their mean words would disappear. Or with, let me see if that's next. No, sorry. Or, you know, somebody might say, oh, send me a picture of yourself, you know, in stages of undress, and, you know, it'll just disappear, don't worry. But what was happening is that people were taking a screenshot of the Snapchat, so then it's there forever. You know, kids want to find a way to have their own privacy, and that makes sense. We all wanted our own privacy in adolescence. That makes perfect sense. But they want to try to find it on the internet, and there's no lesson better than there is no privacy on the internet, ever, ever, ever. So they thought that Snapchat was the perfect way to be able to send pictures and texts and words without anybody ever knowing, but people can do the screenshot. What Snapchat did to kind of try to work on that issue is they say, okay, well now if somebody takes a screenshot of your picture or text, they're going to be notified. Does that make sense? So if I send somebody a Snapchat that's supposed to disappear in 10 seconds, and they take a picture of it, I get a notification that they took a picture of it. But kids have, now there's an app out, and I can't remember what it's called, but there's an app that prevents that interferes with that. So anyways, long story short, Snapchat is also not private, and it's a way that kids are using to bully each other, hurt each other very often. I was also interested, I recently called the police just out of curiosity and said, you know, if a parent brought you a phone, would you be able to recover Snapchats if they wanted the Snapchat history? And it was one phone call, but literally the first police officer said, Snapchat? What's Snapchat? Well, let me, you know, send you to this other person. So then they got on the phone and said, I've never heard of this. I'm going to send you to the detective. And then the detective said, oh, you know what? I think my partner knows about that, but he's at lunch, so maybe you could call back later. So it's still, you know, us adults are always trying to catch up with what they're doing online. But it's really important as much as possible to try to to be on top of it, and by talking to your kids constantly about what's going on, and what's the newest app and things like that. Communication is key. Just want to watch my time. This is actually a little video that I show the freshmen when I go into their classrooms, and I'm going to show it to you. This is actually an older story now. It's from when Oprah was on, so you can tell that it's older. But this case is still very, very popular. And like I said before, unfortunately, cyberbullying gets so bad for some kids, and they feel so isolated and alone by it that they get depressed, and sometimes it leads to them hurting themselves. What I always tell kids is that this is the very rare case. The good news is kids don't usually commit suicide. They don't usually hurt themselves. But the fact that it's contributing to people feeling this badly is what we need to focus on, because we need to do different kinds of things to help them. So I'm going to show you this because I want to kind of bring up some of the points that I make for the students when I talk to them as well. If it works. If not, I'll just tell you the story. So while the commercial's on, this is a pretty famous case because Mr. Halligan has, since this happened in his family, gone out on the road and talks primarily to middle school students about the harm that cyberbullying can cause. But maybe it's not going to work. Maybe it's here. Okay.
Like he was born smiling.
His smile was infectious. He definitely lit up the room.
He was definitely the apple of my eye. And even though he didn't excel in academics, and even though he wasn't excelling in sports, he had the greatest gift of all, and it was a great personality.
Ryan Halligan's parents say kids started teasing him in 5th grade.
When Ryan came to me and said he was being picked on, my initial response was, it's just words. You need to just ignore him. Walk away.
When Ryan's self-esteem started to plummet a bit because of these kids picking on him, I did get him a counselor.
The combination of the therapist and the advice that we were giving him, I thought we were going to be okay.
The bullying continued on and off for the next couple of years. Then came 7th grade.
One night I came home from work. I found my son with his head down on the kitchen table. He lifted his head and he said, I hate this school. I hate this school. I never want to go back there again. Can you homeschool me? Can we move?
We wanted to go into the school and talk to the principal, talk to his counselor, do the conflict resolution, but Ryan didn't want any part of that. He said it would just make things worse.
Ryan's plan was, Dad, teach me how to defend myself. We did that together. Sure enough, he had a point in time where the kid tried to pick a fight with him, and my son, quite frankly, taught him a lesson.
To his parents' surprise, Ryan said he was actually becoming friends with the kid who bullied him, but that friendship was quickly betrayed.
We spread a rumor around the school and online that my son was gay, and this went around the school like crazy. It was like a feed-in frenzy. All of a sudden, kids who normally didn't bully Ryan got in on the so-called fun.
Ryan started getting vulgar, homophobic emails, but didn't tell his parents. He also began long online chats with a girl he liked.
I think he had this plans of trying to get a relationship going with her so that when 8th grade started up again, he could say, she's my girlfriend, and perhaps the gay rumor thing would stop.
But when Ryan approached her in person, he discovered it was all a big setup.
Well, in front of her friends, she told Ryan, look, you're just a loser. I don't want anything to do with you. I was just joking. And she and her friends started to laugh.
Humiliated, Ryan said, "It's girls like you that make me want to kill myself." The following month, emotionally battered by bullies and undiagnosed depression, Ryan hung himself in the bathroom of his home.
I remember screaming, "Why? Why?" Because I didn't understand it. He just seemed so happy.
I was never prepared for that phone call. It was my wife Kelly crying hysterically, "John, you need to come home, you need to come home. Our son is dead, Ryan killed himself." If I had the opportunity to talk to Ryan right now, I would say, "Ryan, I love you. I want to make sure you understand that I love you. We're going to be together again someday."
So that is Ryan Halligan's story. When I show this to students, my message is a little bit different with them, but I do want to kind of tell you what I say to them and what I would say to you as parents. This story touches my heart because I feel like the parents were doing a lot, in terms of addressing the bullying that was happening, especially the face-to-face bullying that was happening at his school. But if you noticed, when it became cyberbullying, he stopped telling his parents. And I will ask students, and I think it's important for you as parents to know this, do you think that that's common? Do you think that students share this kind of information with their parents? And they say no, for various reasons. One is it's embarrassing because, as you can see from his story, the rumors were homophobic rumors. And so the kids will say, and it is true, that it would be very hard to tell parents that that's the kind of stuff that is being said about them. And also, but the other thing that I want you to know is that, this was many years ago, and at the time it was happening mostly on instant messaging, which I don't even think our kids use anymore. And so when Mr. Halligan, they didn't know. And that's another interesting thing is I'll ask the kids, do you think that kids can really hide, all of this stuff from their parents? And they said, absolutely. We can hide anything we want to hide. So Mr. Halligan was trying to find answers because he and his wife were truly confused. And so one day he logged on to Ryan's instant messaging account, and all these kids started responding saying, how dare you? Who are you? Don't you know what happened to Ryan? Why are you on his account? And he said, I'm his dad. I'm trying to understand what happened here. And they started telling him everything. That's how they know the story. They knew what was going on. They had copies of some of the homophobic things that had been being said to him. One boy even said, he actually confided in me that he was thinking about hurting himself. And so what I say to the students is, you guys cannot keep these things silent. You have to reach out. You have to give somebody help if this is what they're going through. But what I would say to you as parents is, you really do have to get yourself, and it's hard because they're resistant, because they do feel like it's their private life, but you have to get yourself involved in what exactly your kids are doing on their phones and on their computers, because it truly can be life-saving. And they still, as much as they resist you, they need you in so many ways. So this is also from cyberbullying.us. 4,400 randomly selected 11 to 18-year-olds were polled in 2010. And the definition they used was when someone repeatedly makes fun of another person online or repeatedly picks on another person through email or text message, or when someone posts something online about another person that they don't like. Because we'll talk about the varying degrees of cyberbullying. We'll talk about, can it happen accidentally? Can somebody say something that's very hurtful to somebody else, one time, not repeated, and is that still hurtful? We talk about all this, but this is the definition that was used in this study, and this is what they found out, that 20% said that they had been a victim at some point, and about the same number said that they had done it to others. And then 10% said they had been both. What's difficult when those Ask FM type sites pop up is it makes it easier. When you're anonymous, it's easier to say the mean things because some of the kids will say they're more courageous, like they can do it, they have more courage to do it, but other kids will say, no, they're more cowardly, and I agree with them, that, they can say these words because they don't think they'll ever get caught. And they admit 100% of the time that they say more online if they know it's anonymous than they would ever say to somebody's face. So it becomes even more hurtful in that sense. And then moving on to kind of the picture part, 10% of 770 teens said that they have felt threatened, embarrassed, or uncomfortable by a photo taken of them and posted. And then this is probably 2 years ago that kids are stealing passwords, pretending they're somebody else online. So again, emphasizing to your children, to keep their passwords totally private between them and you. You should have all their passwords. So cyberbullying is different than the bullying that any of us may have experienced or witnessed as children because they are often anonymous. When they're anonymous, the other thing is that the kids who are having it happen to them, they say, I don't know who it is, so I start to feel like it's everybody. I start to get paranoid as I walk down the hallway. Is it her? Is it him? Are they all sitting in a room together? So it makes them really confused and worried about who's doing it. And they have access to them 24/7. When I talk to students, they admit that if they're being mean to somebody face-to-face and they start to see that they're reacting by maybe getting angry or filling up with tears, they might kind of censor their behavior, maybe stop or pull back. But when it's online, they go and they go and they go because they're not seeing the reaction of the kid who's it's happening to. Even though there's definitely a reaction, they're still being hurt. And then warning signs that your child might be a target. If you walk into the room and they stop using their computer, they stop using their cell phone, they appear to be nervous or jumpy or uneasy about going to school, angry, depressed, anything like that, any change in their behavior basically, anything that seems secretive would be a time to really try to investigate. And the same thing basically, they might be cyberbullying. We have to admit that our kids might be that kid too. So, so those are things to be concerned about. Just some ideas for you as parents before we move on to the next topic. Sometimes what the students tell me is that sometimes they don't tell their parents because they're afraid they're going to run in and try to fix it for them, and they worry that it'll make it worse. So if you have a discussion with your child about being bullied, but they're not ready to report it to the school, you can just offer their advice, like try this, try that, role play with them, empower them to do it themselves. But then if it's something really, really terrible, or if they tell you about somebody else being hurt and it's bad, definitely bring it to the school. You can even make a report to the police. They're definitely taking it more seriously now than ever before. I really want to focus on this for a few minutes because a lot of times parents don't understand what's going on with this. And again, when I work with students, they all know. They all know, from freshmen to seniors. And basically, when I ask them, what is sexting, this is the story they tell 99% of the time. There's a boy and a girl, and they like each other. And the boy asks the girl to send him a picture. Maybe topless or something like that. And, she really likes him, and she really, trusts him, and he did promise that as soon as he sees it, that he'll delete it. And so she sends him the picture, and then either he shows it to his friends at that time, or maybe once they break up, he disseminates it, but somehow it gets out there. And then you can imagine what happens to her in her life. She gets called names, the terrible names, the slut, the whore, those kinds of things. In all of my research on this, and also in working with kids on this issue personally, like girls particularly who have been hurt in this way, it's a really interesting phenomenon. A lot of times the girls who get caught in this situation are girls who are very, very inexperienced in terms of relationships. And they are often doing it as a way to kind of keep him interested in the girl without them taking the next step physically in the relationship. So he might be asking for a little more physical. She's not ready for that, but he asks for the picture and she thinks, okay, I'll send the picture, it will keep him interested. I have more time with my personal boundaries, and then this happens. And, she gets this reputation. I worked with a girl a few years ago that had the same exact story as I just told. She was dating an older boy. She was a freshman, he was a junior. She wasn't ready for the relationship to go further physically, but she agreed to sending the pictures. When they broke up, like a few weeks later, he sent them to everybody he knew. She was a freshman. She did not tell her parents. She did not tell a counselor. She did not tell anybody. Her friends dumped her because they didn't want to associate with somebody who did something like that. She went into a very bad depression, but she kind of got herself through it. And over the summer decided, I'm just going to recommit myself to school. I'm going to do really well. I'm going to recommit myself to my activities, and I'm going to put this behind me. And she certainly did, believe it or not. Sophomore year, junior year were great, good grades. She was excelling in her activities. Senior year, she starts applying to colleges, and the pictures resurfaced. And this time they resurfaced, and the police were involved. So now she has to go to the police station, identify herself with her parents, that these are her pictures. And what she said to me is, I realize now that what I put out there is there forever. Like, I can never get all those pictures back, and I wish I had learned that sooner, and I wish I could tell every student on the earth, my story. And so I tell her story as much as possible, because, it can happen like that. And it can be extremely damaging to these kids. So you can, like I said, you can also report it to your internet provider if there's things going on online, pictures, things like that. You can call the police. What you should know, and what I tell students, is that these pictures, because they're usually of minors, are considered child pornography. So the student who disseminates it can be in trouble for disseminating child pornography, and if convicted, is a registered sex offender for the rest of their lives. So if there's, if you can't appeal to the moral part of not doing it, or not asking for those pictures, or not taking those pictures, there's a legal end too. And I also tell students that, and you should know this too, that as parents who own the technology, who own the phones, you can be in trouble too. There was a news story, I think a year ago, where a father got arrested because there were pictures like this on his son's computer, and he didn't know about it. And his son, had to tell the truth. But and up until that time, he was the one who was getting in trouble for that. So it's being taken very seriously because of the attention it's gotten, because of the damage it's causing to kids. The other thing I just kind of want to say, because people are quick to judge, like, why would a girl ever do that? But we have to think about how everything's instantaneous for our kids today in a way that it wasn't for us. So if I was a freshman in high school and I really adored this boy and was in a relationship with him or whatever, and he asked for a picture of me like that, back then, when we were young, this would be our thought process. Okay, well, maybe because I do trust him, but I have to go get my mom's big camera, and I can't take my own picture, so now I have to ask my best friend to take a picture of me like that. That's weird. And then, I have to take it to, Rite Aid and get it developed, and all these people are going to see it. No, I don't think so. Whereas our kids today, they can just take their little selfie, push send, and I can tell you that I've never met somebody in that situation who doesn't say, I absolutely regretted it the moment I pushed send. But it's gone. it's gone. So having those conversations ahead of time with your kids, saying, I know this is happening, I understand, you know, the thought process, but listen, you know, in the end of the day, it's not the right choice. It's permanent, and it's not private. All right, so I promised you some college stuff. Many of you have probably heard that colleges are starting to look at kids' online lives. So even if you're not, they are. And this is true. They will look at their Twitter. They will look at their tweeting. They will look at their Instagram. A lot of kids don't keep any of that private. Or they just, even if it is private, they accept anybody as followers because they want the numbers. They want, you know, so many numbers of followers. So I found this video clip that I thought would be interesting for all of you as parents on what colleges are doing with this information nowadays.
Now something to tell every young person in your life. A new way the things you do can come back to haunt you. Those embarrassing photos and diary notes on Facebook can now torpedo your college admission. College officials jumping in like detectives and looking to see who their applicants really are. ABC's Lindsay Davis with a life warning for American families.
Rachel Murphy thought she had the picture-perfect profile to apply to the college of her dreams.
This is the thing that was a bit concerning. Do you remember that?
No. Turns out she had some housekeeping to do on her Facebook page. She took down video on her site that didn't relate to her at all, and good thing she did. A new study out this week finds more than 25% of colleges search Google or Facebook to get a window into their applicants. 1/3 say they discovered something that hurt the students' chances of getting in. All those pictures of drinking, tales of cheating, and posts littered with profanity.
Most kids have no idea how important it is that their profile online be appropriate for the admissions process.
They don't just search your site, they'll dig into your friends' sites for photos of you.
What would be that red flag that causes you to actually go online?
Typically we're provoked by either a jaded classmate or a parent, a faculty member.
That's right, jaded classmates sometimes flag admissions offices about what other classmates have been up to online. Public Image Management 101? Don't just keep track of your Facebook account, keep track of what your friends post about you. Don't deactivate your account. Admissions officers say it could actually raise suspicion at the college.
Don't post anything you wouldn't want your mom to see.
The Cliff Notes version, think before you tweet. Lindsay Davis, ABC News, New York.
So people say it's a rumor, but I think it's Kaplan that did the study, and they found out that there are many colleges who are doing it or who will do it if given a tip. You know, like they were saying, you know, sometimes they get a tip from somebody, and so they investigate it, and it can affect the decision. It's even probably to a greater degree for those students who are looking to get scholarships for athletics or things like that. The student athlete has to be extremely careful because now we're talking about colleges who are looking at investing tens of thousands of dollars on this kid, and they want to know that that athlete is going to represent their school properly. And so they will look at their tweets. And, you know, on one of these handouts I gave you from Mom's team, it says social media, what a student athlete posts online matters more than you may think. It talks about a boy from Bosco Prep High School in New Jersey that was that got his scholarship taken away because of something that he put online that was racially charged and sexually explicit. It was a tweet. They also look at if your child retweets something or likes something. So it doesn't even have to be their words, but if somebody writes something sexual or racial and they retweet it, or they retweet a terrible picture, or anything like that, that also they look at all of that. So have these conversations with your kids now. Her advice was don't post anything you wouldn't want your mom to see. In this, the writer writes, don't post anything that you wouldn't let your grandma know or read. So these are really, really public venues, and the kids still, I think they are getting wiser about it, but they still are going ahead, and the things that we see as a school that are turned into us to deal with are pretty amazing that kids are still putting that much out there publicly. So as parents, it's really, really good to be on top of that. So how? Be aware of their online activities. Be their friends. Now this is this is where it gets tricky. You know, I have 2 sons, and in order for them to have Instagram, they told me that Facebook isn't really that cool anymore, and you know that that not a lot of students have Facebooks anymore, but Instagram is still big, and so I said that I wanted to follow them. But, you know, I'm not allowed to like their pictures or comment on their photos. But that way I can see what they're doing. Now, my friend, her daughter created a whole new account that she didn't know about. So she was following this one, and her daughter created a new account. So you have to be aware that that's happening as well. But, you know, there are ways, get yourself really familiar with the site, because you can click on their friends' posts and then see, you know, oh my gosh, there's this you know, my child's picture associated with this other account. You can find them. You can do your own detective work. It's not very difficult. Same thing with Twitter. Twitter's huge, and it's being really misused. Really, really, a lot of the bullying is happening on Twitter. So follow your kids on Twitter. I recently talked to a mom, and I said, you know, do you have a Twitter account? And she said, no, but I'm signing up right now. So, you know, get yourself a Twitter account, follow your kids. You know, you can make up a name that their friends won't recognize, and that way you see what's going on. Also, you know, sometimes having specific rules in place for their use. We give them a computer, so of course they have to use it, but there still can be rules around it. There's still software you can get to make sure that their use is controlled in certain areas. I think our laptop hospital has some of that available to them. And use the filtering, the blocking software, look for warning signs. And then for the kids, you know, who are seeing some bad stuff happening to other kids, talk to them about how they can intervene to help kids who are getting hurt in this way. You know, what are the things that they can do? How can they help somebody? You know, empower them to be good social citizens and helping kids who are getting hurt by what's happening online. Because the other thing that's very, very powerful is that, you know, if somebody posts something mean about somebody and they have 865 followers, instantaneously 865 people have seen that, and now 20 of them have retweeted it, and all their hundreds of friends have seen it, and it becomes this really big deal versus, you know, somebody calling somebody a name in the hallway. I wanted to just end with one more clip. It's kind of cute. Some of you may have seen this. It was from Christmas last year. A mom agreed to give her son an iPhone for Christmas, but he had to sign her own cell phone contract. Now this I gave you from cyberbullying.us, an internet use contract and a family cell phone contract that you can just, you know, maybe take bits and pieces of it if you want to be this formal in setting up your boundaries and your rules. But let's take a look at what this mom did, and then I'll take any questions or comments or thoughts from you. After the commercial.
So you can get out of your element. So you can explore a new frontier and a different discipline. Get 2 times the points on travel and dining at restaurants from Chase Sapphire Preferred. So you can be inspired by great food once again. Chase Sapphire Preferred. So you can.
Could you be onto something in the new age of so-called iParenting? ABC's Akiko Fujita is here with this story. I like what she's doing, this mom.
Yeah, well, this is a story that a lot of teens can relate to. Parents with a very long list of rules. A teenager had been begging his mom for an iPhone all year without much success, so he was pleasantly surprised to find one all wrapped up on Christmas Day. That is until he found the very personal, very detailed contract that came with it, not from the phone company. No, this one was written by his mom.
Number 1, it is my phone, I bought it, I paid for it, no porn. I will always know the password.
It's not exactly the Christmas list you'd expect as a 13-year-old.
Hand the phone in to one of your parents promptly at 7:30 p.m.
An 18-point contract littered with do's and don'ts.
Don't take a zillion pictures and videos.
Greg Hoffman's ticket to a brand new iPhone.
Oh my God, my first reaction was, why? Why did she really have to do this?
What I wanted to do and show him how you could be a responsible user of technology without abusing it, without becoming addicted.
Janelle Hoffman's message has struck a chord with parents worried about the increasing use of smartphones. More than 50 million iPhones are projected to sell this holiday season alone, many of them to teens just like Greg. Teen behavior expert Josh Shipp says a set of rules is a must for teen iPhone use.
You wouldn't, give your kid a car without making sure that they have insurance. And so giving them a cell phone or a computer without teaching them how to use it responsibly is irresponsible on the part of the parent.
Among the 18 conditions, number 7.
Do not involve yourself in conversations that are hurtful to others.
At number 12, a lesson some celebrities could use this year. Take note, Rihanna.
Do not send or receive pictures of your private parts or anyone else's private parts.
Grant's especially nervous about rule number 6, which says he's responsible for replacement costs if the phone falls into the toilet or vanishes into thin air. A legitimate concern, considering there are nearly 16,000 Apple gadgets stolen in New York City alone this year. And if he does lose his phone?
Hopefully, I'll just make up a good excuse or...
There are valuable lessons here for adults too.
Keep your eyes up, see the world happening around you, stare out a window, listen to birds, take a walk, talk to a stranger, wonder without Googling.
Now, Greg's mom says a lot of this was done in jest, addressed partly to all the adults who are so consumed with their iPhones. My personal favorite, rule number 3, do not ever ignore a phone call if the screen reads mom or dad. Not ever.
Yeah, that's the golden rule in that family, right?
Exactly.
I like his initial response. Why?
He did say that, but he said that, I would have followed these rules anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, good answer. All right, Akiko, thank you. It's a great story.
All right, so on that note, as parents, it is completely our right and really our responsibility to place the boundaries on this arena, just like anywhere else, just like you have a curfew. I like that this mom has her son turn over the phone at a certain time. A lot of times parents come to us and say, my child is having, it's taking 6 hours a night to do their homework. But when we ask, is their phone there? Are they still allowed to text? Are you sure that they don't have Facebook up or they're not on Instagram? Usually there's a chuckle and, well, yeah, they are. They say that they need to text their friends to make sure they know what their homework is. Well, they have Blackboard and, they can maybe make a phone call in front of you if they must talk to a friend about homework. But there's so much distraction involved in this. So for you to put rules on that, maybe here's a basket in the kitchen, you put your phone here while you do your homework. When you're done, you can pick it up. Whatever works for your family. But really it is completely appropriate and really important in terms of your child's well-being, based on the stories you've seen today, to have some kind of rules around their cyberspace lives. So that's what I have for you today. Do you have any questions or comments or anything?
It's basically public,
Yes.
but it's private. So how do you interfere? That's one thing, because it's basically their private side. And I understand, all the things, and yes, I talked to my daughter. And the other thing is that, which is interesting, happened a couple years ago. What if, they know each other, they so close friends, and they getting each other's whatever password they have to get in, and they putting trashy, you
Yes.
know, comments, and then the parents get involved, and it's like a whole 9 yards, which
Yes.
is obviously not a good situation.
Yes.
But, you know, I don't like to be jumpy, to tell you the truth, since I have a girl, so, you know, they kind of like drama can
Yeah.
go on until it's necessarily. But what do you do there? I mean, honestly, I really think that they should be responsible, but yeah, I see that it's so many, it can go to the wrong way.
Yeah.
So how do you?
Well,
get involved and
definitely
how
what
involved?
you want to say to your children, and they don't really like this rule because they feel like they can trust their friends more than anybody. But one rule should be that they are the only ones who know their password, and you and they know their password for everything. Nobody else may know their passwords. You might even encourage them to change them from time to time, because that is happening. And the problem is that, and this was in the article that went along with that story about colleges, that was one of the downsides, is that sometimes colleges are reading this information online that they didn't even really post, that somebody else posted about them or tagged them in. But the colleges don't necessarily take the time to investigate it. They just see something that they don't like, you know, and then they have this other kid over here who doesn't have that as part of their profile. So it's so important for you to help your children understand that there's nothing private about this at all, and they want to make sure that they don't share their passwords with anybody. That, you know, I think one of the things that I put up there was kind of appropriate publishing, basically, is what they called it. You know, the things, the do's and don'ts of what to post, because they can also package themselves to look awesome, right, to colleges on their Facebook and Instagram and Twitter on purpose, you know. But definitely, the struggle that they have is understanding that it's not private, but it's not. Anything they put out there. There was an incident that I can recall where a girl posted something really bad on Facebook, and within 5 minutes realized that that was a big mistake. Deleted it, but in those 5 minutes or so, somebody had taken a screenshot of it and turned it in to the police. So it is not private, and when it's deleted, it's not deleted. It exists forever and ever. In doing my Snapchat investigation, after I called the police, I did some Googling, and there is a company last May that that is advertising that, you know, if you give them a cell phone that has a Snapchat on it, or even that doesn't have the Snapchat on it anymore, that within 6 hours they can recover the entire history of the Snapchat on an Android phone, and they were still working on the iPhone one. I'm guessing by now, almost a year later, it has happened. But again, just making sure your kids understand that it is never deleted and it is never private.
I don't even understand how they can have access, to tell you the truth, like Snapchat, whatever it's that called, you know, where it's, you know, because they're not 18. I mean,
and they can do
for
it.
me, it's like, I don't even understand how
Yeah.
they could be involved in.
And a lot of students have Snapchat on their phone. I don't know, you know, when my kids download something, I get it on my phone. So I always know what they've downloaded in terms of apps. I honestly can't tell you how that worked out for me. I didn't do that on purpose, but so I do know when, you know, every time they get a new game, it pops up on my phone and then I delete it. So I always know when my kids have something new. So I would just maybe contact your providers, your cell phone providers, and make sure that you're all on the same account, I think is what it is. And if you're the main phone on the account, you should be getting all of that. So if Snapchat suddenly shows up on your phone, you know your child has it. A lot of kids have it and their parents don't know. A lot.
Yeah. There is with a lot of cell phone providers, you can set it up where you have to approve whatever they're trying to download to. So you may not get it on your phone, but you would have to approve it. And I believe Verizon has that. I'm not sure about some of the other ones. But I do know that there is a program like that too.
And mine's AT&T, my provider.
Good.
So yeah, I guess that would be my biggest message for you as parents is to be as much, and understand that it's always changing and they always know more than you. It's true. But as much as you can, stay on top of it, have these discussions with your kids, and emphasize to them, you know, especially because at this school, you know, they hear about college all the time, college, college, college. What if they work so hard to make this amazing on-paper profile, this great GPA, this great SAT, and, you know, there's a bad picture or some terrible language or something racial on their Instagram that a college finds. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, actually, I just had an incident a couple weeks ago. I follow my son on everything. He says I'm stalking him.
They will say that.
His friend created a fake Twitter account under my name, very similar, and he put a link on it, check out these sexy girl type of thing, sent it to him. I saw it. How do I handle that when it's the friend creating this stuff that's also going to affect me? And, you know, it just, how would I handle that? Is it, how do I block that? How do you go around getting rid of this?
You should, to block things, you should be able to contact Twitter. But do you know his parent?
No.
No. Because I think that I would want to know if my son was doing that.
But sometimes when you tell the parents, they get very confrontational.
No, I understand that.
So,
yeah, and I mean, honestly, you could report it to the police. You could.
Yeah, because that's privacy.
Yeah.
That's really big.
Yeah, because it's interfering with your reputation.
Right.
So
that's what I tried to tell my son. And although he already told him to take it down, again, I don't know where it's gone.
Exactly. Yeah. You could report it to the police.
How do they get your private information? Because as to set it up, you have some information.
Well, he created a fake account.
Yeah,
a
fake
lot
account,
of kids.
it had my name, very similar, maybe like one digit differently. And he went to my son and he says, he attached a link and said, check out these things. And
yeah, that's not okay.
I don't know if there were pictures or anything attached to it or if it was blank. I didn't see that. But because I'm always looking at his stuff, I was able to see what was going on.
Well, I could create a Twitter account at Juliana Galan.
Yeah.
I don't have to be Juliana Galan.
Yeah. You can, they can,
You
there
can
are,
create it in anybody's name. And it would have his email, of course, attached to it. Or there's also the other thing, I don't know if you mentioned, there are temporary emails that you can get now.
Yeah, I didn't mention
From Mail
that.
Expire. And I actually use them a lot because when I'm setting up when I'm doing demos and stuff, online demos, I'll use a fake temporary email and it expires in, you set the time, 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever. So they could set up this whole fake thing using your name, and then in 24 hours the email expires. And the thing you need to do is get a hold of the kid and get the password and make him delete the account. Or go to the police.
Yeah. Yeah, because kids are, I'm noticing, just because a lot of kids go on, request my friendship on Instagram or request to follow me on Instagram, and I don't allow it, but I notice that a lot of kids will come and it'll be a different account, a different account, a different account. So I talked to my sons about it and they said, yeah, a lot of kids have 5, 6, 7 different Instagram accounts. So it's easy. It's really, really easy.
It is 9 o'clock and we're going to stop for today because I know some of you probably have